Dick. Dick Cheney. The Vice President. Dick. And there are still a lot of folks who don't know if it's Cheney or Cheney. One of those leaders whose name will be familiar hundreds of years from now. God bless America. Dick Cheney. Dick. Dick Cheney. The Vice President. Dick. I don't want you to get worried, but just the other day I had this strange feeling in my chest. I found myself short of breath, shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't figure out what was going on. God bless America. Dick Cheney. Dick. Dick Cheney. The Vice President. Dick. Worldly and intellectual man who understood his times probably as well as anyone else alive. This could break down at any second, couldn't it? God bless America. Dick Cheney. Dick. Dick Cheney. The Vice President. Dick. I don't want you to get worried, but just the other day I had this strange feeling in my chest. I found myself short of breath, shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't figure out what was going on. God bless America. Dick Cheney. Dick. Dick Cheney. The Vice President. Dick. Just the other day I had this strange feeling in my chest, shaking uncontrollably. Found myself short of breath. Time's a river, my friend. Thank you very much, and you can be seated now. But I only found out a couple of days ago that I had to be here tonight and be funny. I'm not into funny.
Just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Vyzygoth's Grassy Knoll continues.
Where are you at right now?
Well, right now we finished February and could actually go into March if you'd like.
Yeah, do it.
All right.
Also, before we go, though, I do want to bring up two strange things I did find with regard to the presidential campaigns and stuff, and I'll save that to the end if it's okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, the first week of March we had, what were the problems? Problems were recession, meat recall from the previous week. That was still in the news. People are pissed that tainted meat is being fed to their kids. Waterboarding veto is something they need to cover up. They're going to have waterboarding, by God, so...
Right. That's right.
And the fact that they're going to have to withdraw troops is a problem, because they just can't keep it up. Okay, so what do they have? They started off your week on the 3rd with these eco-terror fires in Woodinville, Washington, which is in Seattle, setting fire to eco-houses.
Oh.
And judging from the housing market, you know, one would imagine that it was probably an inside job, I would think, because they had real flimsy evidence that it was, any eco group, terror group. There's one sign was left. Anybody could have, whoever set the fires just scribbled something on a piece of paper, on a board that said one or two phrases, and then they blamed it all on the terrorists. But it was, they weren't going to sell the houses. They were mega houses. It cost too much. They weren't going to sell them, so they just, I think, probably burned them down too. One would think that would be something they would consider in that situation. Let's put it that way.
Construction lightning, yeah.
Yeah. On the 4th, Texas and Ohio races, Clinton and Obama. The Venezuelan troops moved to the Colombian border. On the 5th, there's the Iraq puppy throwing case where a soldier throws a puppy. Turns out to be a hoax. Hillary wins Texas and Ohio. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those really seemed rigged. There's a nuke plot in Colombia with a laptop. Aunt Jemima salmonella case in Aunt Jemima syrup, I guess. They flood the Grand Canyon, which they tried to make it seem like it was a good thing, but let me tell you, it's not a good thing because it destroys the ecosystem when they do it. Because I took a raft down there once, and that was the one thing that was destroying, using the canyon for anything.
Whenever human beings do something like this, it isn't just an event that doesn't have reactions in other ways. And it always seems like, just keep your fat ass out of there. They spun it for what, there was a reason for it. I'm like, this isn't making a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it washes all the beaches and things away and totally changes it. So whoever's got tourism going there, they have to reconfigure what they're doing completely. But on the 5th, also, they had a New York building collapse, which, anytime something in New York collapses, it brings back the memory of 911.
Are you talking about the crane that crashes into
No, that was another one. This was just a building that was made out of brick and just sort of collapsed.
All right. Do you have anything else on that?
No.
Okay. No. All right, because that one got by me, and of course, yeah, all right. Okay.
Fox TV runs an article that's about public shaming being good. And they give these examples of people that make their kids stand outside for hours in public place with a sign that says, I did such and such and I apologize to society. Have you heard of this?
Oh, well, we had one down here in Florida that did that, yeah.
On the 6th, we have the military recruiting station in New York has a bomb by that guy on a bike. The old guy on a bike. Home foreclosures are rising. 2,000 troops leave Iraq. Pittsburgh home explodes. Gas leak. There's chaos at the Sean Bell death trial. That's the guy we talked about before.
Right, that was shot under the
cops.
Right.
California moth spraying debate. That's a chemical issue. Longshoremen will strike on May 1st, is announced. There's a shooting in Jerusalem at a seminary, kills 8. And a golfer is charged with killing a hawk.
Yep, down here too.
So there's just a ton of stuff they're throwing at us that week, I think, to cover up the vote fraud allegations and the Hillary victories, personally.
Well, with some of those stories, obviously, they can make hay out of them or they can downplay them. Like, for instance, the hawk, the golfer who deliberately kept shooting balls at a hawk who was making noise while he was doing it like a little, a 5-minute golf tip thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, and the hawk was just like doing what the hawk does. It was probably calling for its mate or whatever. And the guy got teed off. Listen to me, what a stupid pun.
Yeah.
God, this just happens to me. And then, he starts just taking an iron or something and shooting at the thing, and he hits it in the head and kills it.
Oh, God.
Come on. Oh, anyway, but the thing is, but what does that really mean? The whole scope of things? Maybe not that much, but then there's other things that they can use to whatever benefit. As far as, getting a fear factor and getting people involved and distracted from other things.
So we have shifted to the end of week activity at this point, and we're at Friday the 7th. So they have a bunch of things that day. I'll just read them. UC Davis has a bomb scare. Times Square bomb is linked to the Hollywood and Canadian borders somehow.
Sure.
They blamed it on some ring or something in those areas, which sort of spreads it out. UNC study, a student body president shot to death. Recession is big in the news. Countrywide is caught defrauding people. Bad water in Iraq going to the soldiers. On the 8th, we have tornadoes in Lafayette, Tennessee. The Lafayette name comes up a lot for tornadoes. This is actually in an older book by Jim Brandon, talking about Lafayette people living in trailers in Lafayette, in the town named Lafayette, are the most likely to get hit by a tornado. So we have one on that day. The meat worker who was doing the tainted meat says he was just following orders. An article comes out that husbands who will get more sex if they help with housework. Buckingham Palace Masonic Lodge opens. Times Square letter linking to Hollywood in Canada is called bogus. And Bush vetoes the anti-waterboarding bill. And then that's that week.
Okay.
Oh, although I will throw in that on Sunday, right after that, the story comes out that there are pharmaceuticals in the water supply. And the highest gas prices, well, they're still going up, so I guess every time I say that gas prices went higher, it doesn't really mean anything now because it's lower than it is now.
Well, and the reference you're making also to drugs in the water supply, isn't that supposedly the result of people throwing their meds, isn't it something like, how is this working out that people who have meds are throwing them into something, away? And they
it's interesting because it doesn't really make sense, does it?
No.
Unless they're recycling the water back in after they treat it, and somehow it's getting through the filter, or they don't have filters for it. I mean, that was what I heard. I heard some water guy here in Seattle say that they just don't filter for drugs. They could, but it would mean re-engineering the system somewhat. Right now they test for heavy metals and solvents and things like that.
Well, let me ask you this. You're on city water, are you not?
What's that? Have I drank it?
Are you on city water? Well, you don't have your own well, do you? No. Well,
Seattle's just not a good example because we have the best water in the country. Probably it comes straight down from the Cascades and down it's all protected. The areas.
Well, are they fluoridating it?
It's a good question.
You better find it out. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, that to me, that's the whole
opinion.
thing.
I don't even know if I have an opinion. I guess it's bad. I've always heard it was a scam to get rid of fluoride because they had excess fluoride making some product.
Yeah, it was aluminum waste product.
Right.
Aluminum manufacturing waste product. It's never been good, whether it's stannous or sodium. It's garbage, and they went ahead again, and they took something, and they made money out of it by promoting to people that it was good for teeth, and it is not.
Gasoline is the same thing. It is a waste product of the chemical process of splitting crude oil because there's so many other more expensive products gotten from crude oil.
Well, see, we get a carburetor that can run on fluoride. No. But so when they were all yakking about this, I'm going, well, how many water systems, are laced with fluoride? And I don't want to make a big thing about this, but I've said this on the show before. When we get our quarterly statement from the county water utility, it shows us, the possible contaminants that can be in the water. And one of them is fluoride, which is not in our water because they don't fluoridate county water. But what it says is, it's funny because it'll say what the origin of it is in this last column, and it'll tell you, from southern pine trees, this or something like that. But fluoride, it says, what does it say? Natural groundwater or something like that, getting in naturally. Also a runoff from aluminum manufacturing. Okay, this is what it says, and then it states below it, and this is the only contaminant they do anything editorial about. It says thought to be good for tooth health or whatever, to prevent tooth decay. And I'm like, why did you even put that in there? And how can somebody read that it comes from as a waste product of aluminum manufacturing and it's good for your teeth? You know what I mean? I got to send you that too. Some of this stuff is mind-boggling, but that's the only element that's in that whole list that has some kind of justification for it being there. Thought to be good for health, promote health, healthy teeth. And I'm like, that doesn't belong in the origin of the substance. You know what I mean? Why did you put that in there? Anyway, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's no justification for it.
No, and I got into it with the county commissioners about this, and they told me the only reason they're not doing it is because it's too cost prohibitive. And I'm like, don't you understand? If people want to fluoridate their water, they think it's good, let them do it in their own households. Don't do this to all of us. Don't be so good to us. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like just let people do this on a case-by-case level. Oh, they're such idiots. So anyway, sorry. Where are we now in March? Third week?
Well, we've...
Is there anything in there for the Ides of March? Did that come true, or have we come through as
if we could do another week, we can hit them. That would be at the end of this next second week here.
All right, so you want to say the Ides of March for next time around?
Oh, I don't know. Where are we at?
Andy, it never matters with us. We just do it. You want to bring March to an end or what?
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's do up to the Ides here.
All right, let's go through the Ides. Okay.
The key story there is going to be the Elliot Spitzer sex scandal, and that's going to cover up, the pharmaceuticals being in the water supply, and the honeybees being dead by 2018 supposedly, and the recession and so forth. What do I have here for the problems? I guess, the recession.
And banking problems, banking bubble perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the winter soldiers are having the veterans are going to protest in D.C. that week on Friday. 200 are killed in a Pakistani bomb on the 11th. That kind of gets you off the issues. And on the 12th, Ferraro makes her anti-Obama statements. Gold hits $1,000 an ounce. On the 13th, though, the dollar is set to start be collapsing. And the Congress has their first closed session in 25 years to discuss what? The spying bill. Will these telecommunications eavesdroppers be prosecuted or not? And that would be, they probably read Jay Rockefeller's letter from the previous week and, wanted to make sure that nothing got out about the extent of this spying, which has been going on for decades, since the 60s. On that day, there's Gilligan's Island's Mary is caught with pot.
Yeah.
It kind of got our minds off of the fact that Congress has to have secret sessions that we don't get to know about.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Friday, there's the Winter Soldier protest in D.C. So they decided to put the D.C. gun ban in front of the Supreme Court that day. Interesting correlation. Obama denounces his pastor for 911 remarks right after the 911. And that story has really carried over up until now, actually. It's been a whole month almost. Columbus has announced the high-tech city of the year. Interestingly, it says, I made a note in here that Battelle got a lot of that money, and then it's not just their data mining stuff, but they have something to do with capturing natural gas in liquid form.
Battelle?
So there you go. That's going to be a connection to the big oil, because natural gas is intimately tied in with the history of oil. They come out of the same wells.
And what company is doing this?
Battelle. Battelle, yeah.
Okay.
Battelle. They did some UFO research. They've done research on just about everything. And they're the ones coordinating the way in which everyone's personal data will be collected by the government in times of national crisis.
Which is always. Yeah.
On the 15th, Pentagon was hacked. It comes out in last June. Pentagon computers. The Tibetan protests start in Lhasa. Bush warns about overcorrecting the economy.
Gonna wind up in the ditch. That jerk.
A Russian rocket fails. It's carrying U.S. satellite. We've contracted our satellite stuff out to Russia.
Yeah, great.
I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up.
No, you couldn't. I know.
That's the day that the crane falls in New York City, and there's an F-16 crash in Arizona. On the 16th, a Sunday, there's a human sacrifice body found that's 5,500 years old in the Sudan, which has a whole interesting history. The Masonic angles of Sudan. upriver from Egypt, so they would be considered. I mean, the whole legend of Set and Horus being downriver, Set being upriver, Set being the other Satan. That whole thing I think comes from Egypt originally, or at least it's reflected in their mythology. That the other, the stranger, the foreigner is Satan or bad or to be feared. And so the Sudanese have always been discriminated against, much like conspiracy researchers of today are being. I lose friends all the time as soon as or acquaintances. I mean, I lost a massage therapist recently because as soon as he saw my book, he just couldn't deal with it. I mean, it's a real thing. It is. It's a real thing.
But
did you ever get this?
Hello.
You ever get into squabbles?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you went to this person for massage therapy, right?
Oh, and I thought, and he seemed totally into everything I was saying, and like an open-minded person. A massage therapist in Seattle is going to be really. He does flower essences and he's like he was in Vietnam even actually.
Yeah.
So an old hippie almost in a way, and he just won't return my calls now.
So but the thing is like, what is your money no good all of a sudden?
I think people are just afraid. They think, they're afraid of two things. They're afraid of conspiracy theorists because you're challenging their belief system, and if there's paranormal involved, it's even worse because now they might be afraid of magic or something rubbing off on them. You know what I mean? Like being around a person who has spooky things happening to them is very frightening for some people.
Okay. No, I kind of have gotten better at approaching people, and it's just got, the thing is sometimes when I get emails from people who say, well, I try to broach this with so-and-so and they went berserk, there's a time and a place, and you gotta pick, it's gotta be timing, because you can't just do this and get it out there. But I'll only say this though to you, that one of the more, I guess, upsetting and disappointing experiences I had was based around this email group that dealt with a provider of organic beef and chicken. And they all know that the FDA stinks, and they all know that the USDA stinks, and they all can't understand why, they don't get any responses from their congressmen or the U.S. senators. And then they go run Ron Paul up a flagpole. I'm going, what do you think is going to happen? Don't you understand? Government is corrupt. Did you think there's a good section of government and a bad section of government? I mean, what are you doing? And they got incensed. They wanted to throw me out. I finally left because I realized I was getting shunned anyway. But my point is, it's that you understand that these things happen in your particular bailiwick. But don't you understand that same government that will allow, these agencies rather, to basically kill people, like we just said about pharmaceuticals and, Olestra, that was another beauty. Don't you understand it's the same characters, man? Same characters.
Yeah, but you were asking about the Ides of March, and I think this was a particularly good one this year, or interesting one, because the 5th anniversary of Iraq came up in this next week on the 20th. So you had Cheney and McCain going to Iraq. You had the continuing protests in Tibet. The Supreme Court decides, hey, we're going to really look at those gun rights now, and there's just a deluge of articles at this time. There's the Spitzer story still going. The economy, they start throwing in some really crazy things at this point. They start talking about Lindy England again, the tortured chick from West Virginia. There's an article about another one of her friends in one of the magazines. The Obama pastor story is still out. They fixed the space shuttle with duct tape. That's not an important story, but just the whole fact of being in that war, doing this, being the 5th anniversary of this total mistake, required that they really pull out some odd stories, or to sneak things by, like this gun thing, which apparently weakens the right to carry an arm. I think they may be calling it something else, but it's not going to help the Second Amendment. There's war protests in D.C. that day on the 20th, and there's a bunch of arrests. Journalists are arrested in Iraq by the U.S. Army on that day. It was reported in the Associated Press. And they announced that that's the 7/7 terror inquest. Remember that story in England? That's going to be secret.
There you go.
And Bush's popularity hits a new low on that day. And Osama comes out with a new tape. And the Pope is accused of attacking Islam. Can you believe?
He's accused of attacking
Pope would never attack Islam.
Well, I mean, he already had said in July that if you're not Christian, if you're not Catholic, you're not Christian. So what does that say about, not only Protestants but also Jews and, Muslims? So, I mean, that's not a great thing. But
so interestingly, on the next day, the 21st, the day after the 5th anniversary in Iraq, there's nothing. Nothing at all as a consequence, except for Sarah Jane Olsen getting released, the old terrorist, with a name similar to Sarah Jane Moore's. I think it actually gets confused in people's minds.
It does.
And they release her 8 years early, and they say, well, that was a mistake, and so they go get her back again.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Well, the reason why everything was quiet because it was an occult holiday. It was the vernal equinox. So.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah. That's great. We let you go. We made a mistake. Come back. I mean, it's bizarre. But the Pope attacked Islam. How do you have anything more on that? I know you might have just one-liners there.
Yeah, that was just that was an AP radio thing. So
okay.
I mean, yeah.
All right.
Somebody in the Middle East, probably Al Jazeera. I don't know.
All right, but understand something too. And this was released just, I think, inside April. I believe it may have been the end of March. And I just it dinged my ears, and I'm like, okay, we'll see what they do with this. When they made the statement that global Muslims now outnumber Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so now what does that do in everybody's psyche? Like, oh my God, here comes the Islamic horde. The Ottomans are going to rise again, and we got to prevent this from happening. You know what I'm saying? Because they're always going to play this religious card whenever they need to inflame the situation, which they're eventually going to ignite. And it goes right back down to the same crap that's being pulled off, by the Crusades back in the 1100s. And they're gonna keep that theme going, until they finally, set the powder keg off. So
one thing I forgot to mention was on the day after that, the 22nd. That's when they announced that 2 new Manson graves have been found in the desert.
Oh, that's right. They think there's more at the ranch, right?
So they're bringing Manson up. They're bringing Sarah Jane Olsen up, and they had just released Sarah Jane Moore a couple of months before that. She was in the news. They brought up Lindy England. So any old mind control thing can be brought up again and trigger the old feelings, the fears about that.
So what are they going to do? Ask Charlie, okay, where's the other bodies? I mean, how's that going to work out? What are they going to have to sniff them out? It's ridiculous. Charlie, where are they? What a dumb.
You'd get a 10-minute rant on something marginally related.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, good luck with that, guys. Ay. All right. Well, listen. If you're ready, I'll lay on this political stuff. But if you're not done, by all means.
Go ahead.
Are we all set then?
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll get out of here. By the way, we're talking with, if you've wondered for the last hour and a half, it's Andrew Colvin. The website is andycolvin.com. He's the author of The Mothman's Photographer. He's got a DVD as well. And Andy, you are getting ready to come out with what would you call it, a 3rd edition? Would that be correct in saying that?
A 3rd book, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, The Mothman 3. And that's got more interviews with you, transcribed and fact-checked and all that, up through probably hour 23.
Okay.
4. And a bunch of interviews with West Coast paranormal witnesses and commentary about recent things going on in the Mothman world. There's always there's more and more. There's been some significant, I think, correlations drawn and facts found, and things about Indrid Cold and Apol, and finding a guy in West Virginia who uses swords much like they use swords in the Garuda areas of Southeast Asia. using it for divining things and getting
that's right. Yeah, I remember
visions of the future,
yes.
whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were saying that it was more of in a sense, a beneficial tool, I guess, than a weapon of of obviously murder and destruction.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever asked you this, and again, you stay deeper into the shows that we've done, so honestly, yes, you will remember better than I. But I was just thinking about this today, too, because I passed by those gargoyles again, but then I started wondering also, and I don't know if I ever asked you, and if you've answered, please give it the short form this time around. If not, then tell me. With the whole idea of either Frank L. Baum's book, The Wizard of Oz, or at least the way that Hollywood portrayed these particular creatures, do you believe or do you know whether the Garuda legend ever factored into what I still never made sense of, and that was flying monkeys?
Well, they put a dark spin on it, darker than I think would be that you could attribute to the Garuda. I mean, the Garuda's just not seen as hurting anybody. I mean, if you're steeped in Buddhist tradition or Hindu, you know that it's a protector. Now, some Indians think differently of the Thunderbird, and they're thinking it is more predatory, but even some of them don't view it that way.
All right.
Like Native Americans.
All right, so the unadulterated mythology or legend or whatever about the Garuda is one of anything else except violence.
Yeah, he's locked in a timeless battle with the evil serpents, or the bad guys.
Okay.
Nagos.
Okay.
And it's funny you mention that, because I just watched that scene last night in The Wizard of Oz with my son. We've been perusing The Wizard of Oz. We watch 5 or 10 minutes a night.
Well, I'm going to say two things. The Wizard of Oz as a kid, and it seemed to me they always ran it around Thanksgiving time. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're going back to the 50s. And I saw it once or twice, but you know what? It unsettled me so much, I would not make it standard watching every year. Two things I did not like. Those flying monkeys just bugged the heck out of me. And even the whole portrayal of the kind of soldiers that were at the castle, which were very Russian-like, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole thing was so dark and so rotten. I just was like, that's okay with The Wizard of Oz. I'm not really interested.
Well, I think my son must be really desensitized, because he was smiling. He was so happy that they beat the witch, and I mean, it didn't seem to have. I was watching very closely for that, because it did. The monkeys really bothered me too. But I don't know. I think it's not like we give him. I don't think we give him too much, but we do work with him on it. And I actively watch things with him, and whereas I think we were just dropped down in front of the TV,
but
and sort of tough it out however it was going to go. I try to be there, and he actually is building insight, I think, into the stories, and he's really good with making stories, writing stories and things.
How old is he though now?
He's 5.
All right. The interesting thing for me, if he revisits this show, if you do it on any kind of basis, like I said, whether it's Thanksgiving or it comes back to it again, because remember, we get fed this every Thanksgiving season. But I mean, whether if he changes his attitude towards that as he ages,
that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's sinking. It's going to the subconscious, and maybe he's just not aware of it. So,
and again,
I thought, my wife and I debate about that. What's good, what's not. And, go ahead.
No, that's all. I mean, of course, that was my take, but it left me very uncomfortable. I thought that was a little bit too diabolic for a movie like that. I really did. And I believe it might be in Baum's book, because on one of the old covers of Wizard of Oz, there is a flying creature out there. So I'm assuming that Hollywood didn't make it more nefarious than it was. I'm not sure.
With my son, though, he's really, at this point, he's well steeped in the whole Mothman thing, because I mean, I wasn't going to ever mention it, but he found this image in this picture that
the famous kitchen picture.
Yeah, and he said that's the Garuda, and he had almost no. Yeah, I don't even know where he got that, but he must have heard me talking about the Garuda. And so that since that time, we're always talking about these flying creatures, and he's sort of become a spokesman for Mothman. It's pretty amazing. He has his whole, feeling about what it is. And there's been some oddities with this. He actually at one time he goes, Daddy, Mothman is really the Tower Man. And I go, the Tower Man, and it really rang. I thought of the Eighth Tower. That's John Keel's other Mothman book. And they should have been together in the same book actually, and I'm like, well, what's with the Tower Man? I was really going to fall out if he said, well, he's on the 8th floor, but he didn't say that. But he said Tower Man existed before everything else.
And
he's sticking to that, actually. It's been a year or two, and he's still...
and he has no idea you think that...
He sees it as one thing, and then he sees it as another thing that came before time, before the world was. And that's actually what the Garuda... that's one of the symbolisms of the Garuda. He's the background on which everything gets played on.
Mm-hmm.
He's the ethereal background, or the space, or the ether. And so I was just amazed by that.
All right. Well, the other thing I find upsetting too, and I wonder if this wasn't drawn on perhaps the account Revelation, and that is a section in Fantasia which I found extremely dark, and that was Bad Night at Ball Mountain. Do you remember that?
No.
When the mountain actually opens up and it turns into this like Nosferatu we were talking about the other day, and then like all the ghouls come out and stuff, and it's heavy, and I wonder now if whoever wrote that script, that teleplay for the animation, whether or not they were drawing on something from Revelation. Of course, I don't have to sell you in the fact that Walt Disney was an extremely, shall we say, interesting character.
Yeah.
Especially in his early Mickey Mouse cartoons, when he's in a Merlin's disguise with Islamic, or Masonic ornamentation on his garb, Mickey Mouse, and then that's when he makes the broomsticks walk and all that stuff. Anyway, enough of that. Now, to end up, I just want to throw this out to you because this is kind of interesting. Somebody sent me a photo of a huge flag that adorned one wall of a meeting place in New Hampshire for Hillary Clinton, and said, notice the configuration of the stars. Now, in symbology, a five-pointed, well, we call them stars, actually, let's call them what they are, they're pentagrams. When the pentagram has 1 point up and 2 points down, its feet, which we see normally on our flag, it's considered benign. But if it's reversed, with 2 points up and 1 point down, it is seen as being definitely occultic. I think they're both occultic, by the way. I think a pentagram is a pentagram is a pentagram. It don't look like any freaking star to me. So here's where I'm going with this. They show this flag in a photo, and it's got, here it is, a big old huge flag with the 50 stars, point down, 1 point down, 2 points up. Also, it's reminiscent somewhat of Baphomet. And I'm saying, this has got to be a Photoshop job. So I go back, Gordon Comstock sent it to me. And I said, Gordon, I think this is a Photoshop job. I went on the website, I couldn't find anything. Well, it's there. He wrote back to me, he said, you might want to check this out again, because here it is. So, if you go to HillaryClinton.com, and there's some banners, and it's up top, or tabs, and it says states. Click on states, click on New Hampshire. You know what? And Andy, I don't know why, but there are 3 photos from behind them on the stage out to the audience, and 3 of those photos had that flag, this huge flag, with what we would call the more Saturnine posture of the stars. And I'm like, well, okay, it's there, and I'm looking at it right now. I called this up a little bit earlier, and I'm like, all right, what is the deal with that? Now, when they do a shot from the crowd to the stage behind Hillary and Bill and Chelsea, there is there's another huge flag, but the stars are configured like we usually see them. Why in the world would they be configured in that manner? You know what I mean? And Gordon said to me, he goes, look, even if they photoshopped it, then what does that say? And I'm like, well, that's a good point. You know what I mean, Andy?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that there? And I asked people to go to HillaryClinton.com, and click on states and click on New Hampshire and take a look at the, I don't know, maybe what we got here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, we had 6 photos.
So she's got Satano power behind her?
Well, I think they all do, but the thing is, was that flag like that?
Oh, well, that reminds me of her prayer group. That's exactly what they've said about her prayer group.
What's that?
I just posted about that on the Mothman Photographer Yahoo discussion list.
You know, it's starting to scare me about you and I and our little synchronicities. This is scaring me.
Did I make a? I think I have a little.
So what was the deal with the prayer group? What's going on there?
Let me see here. I'm going to find it. Okay, let's go. I'm going to have to sign in.
That's okay. I'll play Jeopardy music.
It's a prayer group. They're accused of helping the Nazis prior. Some older group of right-wing fundamentalists. Okay, here we are. This is from Alex Constantine's site. He's a Grassy Knoll listener. Hi, Alex.
He listens to this show?
Well, I thought he did.
Why would he come on?
Him on one of the emails that you guys were sending around that was getting bounced around this week, the big controversy over 911 truth or something. How would you classify that debate that you had this week?
It wasn't a debate.
General, without naming who is...
No, it was a dunk-throwing contest. I don't like the guy. I never did. I forgot that I didn't like him. And when he came back out whining again, I just let him have it. I instigated. There's no two ways about it. I think he's a piece of steaming dung.
Well, here it is. There's a book coming out in May called The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power by Jeff Charlotte. I can't vouch for the book other than Constantine is saying that it will... it says Historia has spoken about the type of church Hillary does choose to attend, an organization cultivated in an open quest for power, undemocratic modus operandi. He quotes Barbara Ehrenreich as saying that Hillary seeks spiritual guidance from the family. She calls it a collection of powerful right-wing politicos, which have included Sam Brownback, Ed Meese, John Ashcroft, James Inhofe, and Rick Santorum.
Okay,
During the 1940s, this organization reached out to former and not so former Nazis, and its fascination with Hitler has continued, along with ties to blah, 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 blah. Family avoids the word Christian, but worships Jesus, though not the Jesus who promised the earth to the meek. They believe that in mass societies, it's only the elites who matter, the political leaders who can build God's dominion on earth. Insofar as the family has a consistent philosophy, it's all about power, cultivating it, building it, and networking it into ever stronger units or cells. We work with power where we can, the family's leader, Doug Coe, has said, and we build new power where we can't.
You know, to call these people Christians is completely erroneous. I mean, you can fake Christianity and all this other stuff, and this is something I'm dealing with some other people as well. And it even goes to Robertson, and it goes to Graham, I'm sorry to say. But these people come on as being Christian or Christian-like, and and I heard this whole thing, too, I got to do a show on this, about these supposedly end-timers wanting to hasten the Lord's time. It can't be done. And I mean, Andy, I don't have to beat you over the head with it. I mean, you understand where we're going, and this is not the focus right now. But this family thing is also another way that an author can take some other things and weave this kind of intriguing story, just like Lavenda did with the Wandering Bishops. It all goes back to something other. Now, what you just read is very, very provocative, and, it would pique my interest. So I've
heard about it before. It's been around a while. I just have never really paid much attention, other than knowing that she was in some kind of pretty hardcore, prayer group.
Yeah, well, I don't know who they're praying to, but I'm going to guess it isn't Jehovah. All right. So anyway, so people go to take a look at this and tell me, but this is not a big, this isn't new to me. I just wonder, why you do this. I mean, why is that up there? And Gordon Comstock, credit to him, pursued on this, because I dissed it because I couldn't find it on our website, but sure enough, there it is. And I'm like, why would you have that there? That's not a mistake. Like you said, if you photoshopped it, you're still giving a message out. Although the flag behind them in the one of the 6 shots is regular. Now, I'm going to move on to something else, and this is even more bizarre to me. But this only is, to me, the trappings of what is government. Government is not of God. It is of the pit. And it's never good, really, for too long for anybody. None of us, Andy, we the little people. Now, I go to Nancy Pelosi's site. I got something from Nancy Pelosi about Nancy Pelosi. Said, okay, I clicked on the site and I go looking around. And I don't know why I did this. I go looking through the photographs. And she's glad-handing people through the last years, all these, San Francisco this and, Gorbachev, whatever, Presidio. I'm going to tell you straight out. If you folks go to Nancy Pelosi, whatever it is, whatever website is .com, and you click on the photos of her and her interns, young people, right? I'm not kidding you. I mean, there are some that are stronger than others, but she's got 3 occult grips that she's shaking hands with these people, with the extended index finger, with the other master grip, and also the Maha bone grip, which is known with masonry, which is obviously grabbing almost somebody else's wrist with 3 fingers on their wrist. And I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm only asking people to go take a look. I don't think I'm being wacky about this. I just was going through it, and I'm like, what the heck is that? All of a sudden, it isn't a normal handshake. And I'm like, what is this going on here? And I'm not making too much hay out of it, but I don't want to I'm not going to let the opportunity go by where I'm not going to say, go take a look for yourselves. You see regular handshakes, and I mean, Andy, I've had, in time gone by, sections where we tongue-in-cheekly call it, they know the handshake.
Yeah.
And I just got one with Ratzinger, Joey Ratz, the Pope, with, what a creep, with the new Jesuit general. He's not called Fall, he's called Jesuit general. And
you're predicting that Bush is going to visit with Joey Ratz prior here to the upcoming April 19th.
Yeah.
Ratzinger's going to be over here. We're probably going to see some terror or something, right?
Well, I'm wondering, when he's over there in Europe now, I'm not paying that much close attention, but usually when Bush or Blair or whoever it was over there, they usually stop by the Vatican. Okay? And everybody's thinking it's because they pay a little visit to the old man and, kiss his hand and go away. But I mean, no, that's the place where it happens. All that other stuff is like, window dressing. Yeah, sure he's going to Romania, sure he's going to Ukraine, but does he go to the Vatican before he comes home? Yeah, now, interestingly, I think, as you just alluded to, Joey Ratz is supposed to come over here on Patriots Day, isn't he? April 19th. Does that sound correct?
I don't really know. I thought you had mentioned that.
Yeah, I think it's Patriots Day. I'm going, oh, okay, now what kind of sorcery are going to work up for this one? Yeah, so, anyway, but I got to send you the photo of Joey Ratz and the new Jesuit general. Now, you take a look at that photo and look at their handshake, and you tell me it's normal. I've never in my life have shaken hands with anybody like Ratzinger does and Pelosi does. And if you go there, like I said, folks, on Pelosi's site, go look at the handshakes with the interns, and you tell me if there aren't 5 out of 6 is not a little interesting. I don't know, man, and I'm not getting freaky about it, but things do go bump in the night, and those who listen to the show understand that. I'm only asking you to take a look and tell me if I'm certifiable. That's fine, but I don't think so.
I just looked up Ratzinger, and he was elected successor to Pope John Paul on April 19th of 2005.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? It's his anniversary.
Isn't that the big?
Isn't that beautiful? That's a patriot.
That birthday too, and all that.
That's Hitler. Hitler's birthday.
Yeah, isn't it?
I believe so.
Isn't that the Oklahoma City bombing day?
And that's right. You got it.
Stuff, yeah.
All kinds of. Oh no, that's a very interesting day, and it's been like that since like '94 or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, because okay, yeah. I don't know. So anyway, you can't make this stuff up. I don't know what's going on, but that is interesting. But I have to send you that photo of Joey Ratz and the Black Pope. You get a kick out of that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are we done here?
We're done.
Our work is done. This has been Andrew Colvin. The website's andycolvin.com. And listen, just as a ballpark, you don't have to know this. I'm just wondering, if you had a target date for when you would release the third offering, what do you think that might be?
It's going to be in the summer, like last year. Just my goal is just to get it out before September when they have the festivals, so forth, Mothman Festival. So
Okay.
it'll be in summer.
All right, good deal. Hey, listen, I'll talk to you soon again. We'll be in touch, no doubt about it. We'll pick up where we left off.
Marvelous, 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 fried fish, marvelous fried fish, marvelous fried fish, marvelous fried fish, marvelous, 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 marvelous fried fish, 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 marvelous, 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 marvelous.